Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Enjoy Biochemistry. I am Dr. Trupti. This is the second part of liver function test. In the previous part, that is part 1, I have explained the classification of liver function test, that is biochemical classification and clinical classification. And in this second part on liver function test, I am going to explain the common liver function tests which are routinely done in the laboratory. The routine markers of liver disease, which are commonly known as liver function test, and those are estimation of serum bilirubin, that is total conjugated and unconjugated, hepatic enzyme panel like AST, ALT, ALP, GGT, serum total protein, albumin and albumin globulin ratio, prothrombin time, and urine analysis for bile pigments and bile salts. Estimation of serum bilirubin, unconjugated and conjugated bilirubin, as well as urine analysis for bile pigments, bile salts and urobilinogen. These are called the tests of hepatic excretory function. And we should have basic idea about what is bilirubin, how it is formed, what is the difference between unconjugated and conjugated bilirubin, what are bile pigments, bile salts and urobilinogen. So what is this bilirubin? This is the end product of heme catabolism. And the normal range of bilirubin is 0.2 to 0.8 milligram per deciliter. Unconjugated bilirubin is also called as free bilirubin because it is not conjugated, and it is also called as indirect bilirubin. It is water insoluble, and that's why it is always complexed with albumin in the circulation. So unconjugated, indirect, water soluble. So you should note that these are all terms used for the same, that is for the unconjugated bilirubin, which is formed during heme catabolism. The normal range is 0.2 to 0.6 milligram per deciliter. The conjugated bilirubin, which is formed later in the liver from unconjugated bilirubin, it is called as direct bilirubin. This is water soluble bilirubin. Conjugated bilirubin is water soluble bilirubin, and the normal range is 0.1 or 0 to 0.2 milligram per deciliter. And what are these bile pigments in urine? Bile pigments are nothing but bilirubin and biliverdin, and in the urine only conjugated bilirubin can be present in the abnormal condition. It is always absent in the normal condition. So conjugated bilirubin, that is the direct bilirubin, it is normally absent. If it is present, it shows the presence of some disease because it is the abnormal constituent of urine. The bile pigment which is present in the urine is conjugated bilirubin. Now what is bile salts? Are they normally present in the urine? No. It is also abnormal constituent of urine. And what are these bile salts? These bile salts, they are the sodium and potassium salts of bile acid, that is taurocolate, sodium glycocolate. So these are bile salts. Bile pigments and bile salts are different. Bile salts are product of cholesterol degradation. So never be confused between bile pigments and bile salts. Bile pigments are end product of heme catabolism, while bile salts are product of cholesterol degradation. Normally bile salts are not excreted in the urine, and if they are present, they show some clinical condition. So normally they are absent. Urobilinogen, it is formed from deconjugation of conjugated bilirubin in the intestine. So normally traces of urobilinogen are present in the urine. So this is about the test of hepatic excretory functions. Now let's understand heme catabolism in brief. It includes first step is formation of bilirubin. Bilirubin is bile pigment. On RBC lysis, hemoglobin is released and there is formation of biliverdin from heme, and later this biliverdin is converted into bilirubin in the reticuloendothelial system. The bilirubin which is formed here is unconjugated bilirubin, or it is also called as free bilirubin, which is water insoluble. Second step is transport of bilirubin to liver. This bilirubin which is unconjugated, it is not water soluble, so it cannot pass in circulation and reach the liver, so it is always complexed with albumin. So this bilirubin albumin complex, it reaches liver. So second step is transport of bilirubin to liver. Third, in the liver conjugation occurs. So this unconjugated bilirubin is now conjugated with the help of glucuronic acid to form conjugated bilirubin. And fourth step is then secretion of this conjugated bilirubin in the bile and then excretion of bilirubin. So this bilirubin, which is a conjugated bilirubin now, it is also called as bilirubin diglucuronide, and this bilirubin is a conjugated bilirubin which is now excreted through this bile duct and it comes in the intestine. Now this conjugated bilirubin by the intestinal bacteria, it is converted into urobilinogen. This urobilinogen is formed in the intestine. Now 10% of this urobilinogen through the portal vein, that is enterohepatic circulation, it reaches liver and it can be excreted through kidney in the urine. So this urobilinogen is actually colorless compound, but on oxidation it becomes urobilin, and excretion of urobilin is less than 4 mg per day in the urine. So normal color of urine is due to this urobilin. Now what happens to about 80 to 90% of urobilinogen? That is converted into stercobilinogen. So stercobilinogen is excreted in the feces and it is also colorless compound, but on oxidation it becomes stercobilin. So 300 mg per day stercobilin is excreted in the feces. So these are the 5 important steps of heme catabolism, and these first 3 steps, that is formation of bilirubin, transport of bilirubin to liver and conjugation of bilirubin in the liver, if there is any defect in these 3 steps, then it leads to increase in the unconjugated bilirubin. And if there is defect in the 4th and 5th step, that is secretion of bilirubin in bile and excretion of bilirubin, it results in the increase in conjugated bilirubin. Normal range of total serum bilirubin is 0.2 to 0.8 mg per deciliter. In some books it is mentioned 0.2 to 1 mg per deciliter. And if it is more than 1 mg per deciliter, it is called as hyperbilirubinemia, that is increased bilirubin in the blood. If it is between 1 to 2 mg per deciliter, it is called as latent jaundice. And clinical jaundice is when there is increased bilirubin level more than 2 mg per deciliter. So when the level of bilirubin is more than 2, then it gets deposited in the subcutaneous tissues and it leads to yellowish discoloration of sclera, skin, eyes, etc. So this is called as jaundice. Jaundice is a sign, it is not a disease. Now this jaundice can be of 3 types. It is mainly categorized into 3 types, and the first one is prehepatic, means before hepatic. What happens in the heme catabolism before liver, means before the bilirubin reaches to liver. So if there is any abnormality during this phase, that is prehepatic phase, it is called as prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice. So if there is increased hemolysis, due to that there is increased heme catabolism and increased formation of unconjugated bilirubin. So this step is called as, or this jaundice is called as prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice. Now second is hepatic jaundice. So this hepatic jaundice is also called as infective jaundice or hepatocellular jaundice. So in this condition, liver is involved. So what happens in the liver during heme catabolism? Conjugation occurs. So if there is any defect in the conjugation, or because of hepatitis or any condition which damages the liver, so there is means liver dysfunction is there, in that condition the jaundice occurs and it is called as hepatic jaundice. The third is post-hepatic, means after the liver. So what happens after the after bilirubin excreted from the liver through bile duct, then it reaches the intestine, then enterohepatic circulation, then comes through the kidney in the urine. It is also excreted in the feces. So if there is any abnormality during the excretion of bilirubin from liver in the intestine due to any obstruction, it is called as post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice. So there are 3 types of jaundice. Prehepatic, it is same as hemolytic, hepatic or infective, and third is post-hepatic or obstructive. Now let's understand prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice, and this prehepatic jaundice includes the steps in heme catabolism before liver, that is up to formation of this unconjugated bilirubin due to this hemolysis or RBC lysis that occurs in the reticuloendothelial system. Now, what are the causes of this hemolytic jaundice? The causes can be intrinsic causes when there is abnormalities within the red blood cell, and the causes are hemoglobinopathies like thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, hereditary spherocytosis, or in case of G6PD deficiency. So there is intrinsic abnormality within the red blood cell. Now, the causes can be due to extrinsic causes, the factors external to the red blood cell. For example, in incompatible blood transfusion, hemolytic disease of the newborn, autoimmune hemolytic anemias, and malaria. So these are the various causes of prehepatic jaundice, which is also called as hemolytic jaundice. Now let's see what will be the picture, laboratory picture. So if we estimate serum total bilirubin in these conditions, like in hemolytic or prehepatic jaundice, so what will happen to this total bilirubin? So as there will be more hemolysis due to any of the cause, there will be more formation of bilirubin. Which bilirubin? This unconjugated bilirubin. And unconjugated bilirubin is a part of total bilirubin, because total bilirubin is equal to conjugated bilirubin as well as unconjugated bilirubin. So what will happen to total bilirubin? It will be elevated. Now, what will happen to the unconjugated bilirubin in case of prehepatic? There will be more hemolysis, so more formation of unconjugated bilirubin. So it will be elevated. And what will happen to the conjugated bilirubin? It will remain normal, because liver has 10 times more capacity to conjugate bilirubin. So in this hemolytic anemia, the conjugated bilirubin will remain normal. Only unconjugated bilirubin will be increased. Now coming to the urine analysis parameters. So the bile pigment here, it is the conjugated bilirubin. So now here the conjugated bilirubin in the serum is normal. So will it appear in the urine? No. So the bile pigments in the urine will be absent, as well as bile salts will also be absent. And urobilinogen, it is normally present in the urine, and in this case there is increase unconjugated, conjugation is normal. So conjugated bilirubin is getting converted into urobilinogen and it is coming in the urine. So there will be presence or somewhat increase in the urobilinogen will be seen in this prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice. Stercobilin will also be present in the feces. So whenever there is increased unconjugated bilirubin along with the absence of bile pigments and bile salts in the urine and presence of urobilinogen in the urine, this indicates prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice. Second type of jaundice is hepatic jaundice or infective jaundice, and this includes this liver. And in the liver, what happens? Unconjugated bilirubin is taken up by the liver and conjugation occurs. Then the conjugated bilirubin is excreted through bile duct in the intestine. What are the causes of this hepatic jaundice? This can be viral hepatitis. It can be caused due to hepatitis A, B, C, or hepatocellular carcinoma, toxic hepatitis, and the liver damage due to various hepatotoxic drugs. There can be intrahepatic cholestasis due to obstruction to the bile flow from the intrahepatic bile duct. So all these conditions can lead to this hepatic jaundice. What happens to the laboratory parameters in hepatic jaundice? So this is jaundice, so there will be increase in the total bilirubin. But in hepatic jaundice, there will be increase in both unconjugated bilirubin as well as conjugated bilirubin can also be increased if there is intrahepatic bile duct obstruction or if there is intrahepatic cholestasis. So both the fractions of bilirubin, that is unconjugated and conjugated, can be elevated in hepatic jaundice. Now what happens to bile pigments and bile salts? So in the later stages of liver damage or liver injury or due to the intrahepatic cholestasis, and as the conjugated bilirubin is also increased, this bile pigment and bile salts can be excreted in the urine, because whenever there is obstruction to the bile flow, this bile pigments and bile salts get regurgitated in the circulation and then they are excreted through the urine. So the bile pigments and bile salts both are excreted or present in the urine. What will happen to urobilinogen? In the means early stages it is present, but if later in the later condition, if the obstruction sets in due to intrahepatic bile duct obstruction or obstruction to the bile flow, intrahepatic bile duct obstruction, then in the later stages the urobilinogen cannot be excreted in the urine because there will be obstruction to the bile flow. This conjugated bilirubin will not be able to enter the intestine. So once it is not entered the intestine, it cannot be converted into urobilinogen. So in the early stages of liver damage, urobilinogen is present, but in the later condition it can be decreased. And feces, stercobilin can be present in the early stage, later it can be decreased. So in case of hepatic jaundice, the color of stool is variable, it can be pale in color. Coming to the post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice. Now this will include this phase of heme catabolism, right from the flow of bile from this gallbladder in the intestine. So this is, if there is any defect in this stage of heme catabolism, it will result in the post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice. And it is the causes are extrahepatic cholestasis, gallstones, carcinoma of head of pancreas, enlarged lymph glands pressing on the bile duct. So whenever there is obstruction to the bile flow, what will happen? This conjugated bilirubin won't be able to come in the intestine. So there will be increased conjugated bilirubin, stasis, cholestasis will occur here and it will get regurgitated in the circulation. And that's why there will be more increase of conjugated bilirubin in the serum, as well as it is a water soluble bilirubin. Conjugated bilirubin is water soluble bilirubin, so it can be excreted then through urine. And these are the various causes. Now let's see what happens to the laboratory parameters. So what will happen to the total bilirubin? So it will be increased because it is a jaundice. Unconjugated bilirubin will be normal and conjugated bilirubin will be elevated in this condition, as the defect lies here in after the liver, that is post-hepatic cause, and the obstruction is due to various conditions like gallstones, carcinoma of head of pancreas, etc. What will happen to the bile pigments, bile salts and urobilinogen? Now conjugated bilirubin is elevated and there is obstruction to the flow. So this conjugated bilirubin, that is bile pigment, will be excreted through urine. So it will be present, both bile salts and bile pigments will be present in the urine. And the test for bile pigment is Fauchet test, and test for bile salt is Hayes sulfur flower test. I have already explained this test in my video on urine analysis. I am giving the link in the description box, so you can watch those videos also. And the test for urobilinogen in urine is called as Ehrlich test. So what will happen to urobilinogen in this condition? As you know that this urobilinogen, how it is formed in the intestine? It is formed from this conjugated bilirubin. This conjugated bilirubin, by the action of bacteria, it is converted into urobilinogen. But if there is obstruction to the flow, means this conjugated bilirubin is not able to come in the intestine, then how will it be converted into urobilinogen? So there will be no conversion of conjugated bilirubin to urobilinogen. So will it come in the circulation and will it come in the urine then? No. So it will be absent. And in the feces also, so no urobilinogen, so no stercobilinogen. So there will be absence of stercobilin as well. And that's why the patients of post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice, they will present with the high colored urine or dark colored urine due to presence of this bile pigment, that is conjugated bilirubin in the urine, and clay colored stool because of absence of stercobilin in the feces. So in the post-hepatic jaundice, there will be increased conjugated bilirubin along with the presence of bile salts, bile pigments, and absence of urobilinogen in the urine. Estimation of serum bilirubin by Vandenberg reaction. What is this Vandenberg reaction? Let's see. The principle of estimation of bilirubin is the diazotized sulfanilic acid, that is sulfanilic acid in the hydrochloric acid and sodium nitrite. This diazotized sulfanilic acid reacts with bilirubin present in the serum to form a purple colored complex. It is called as azobilirubin. So this is the principle of estimation of bilirubin, and it is the Vandenberg reaction. Normal serum gives a negative Vandenberg reaction. So if we perform this test, if we add diazotyl acid to the serum of normal person, means having the normal bilirubin values, the test will be negative, means there will be no development of purple color. Now this Vandenberg reaction can be direct positive. So what will happen in this direct positive Vandenberg reaction? So if we add reagent diazotyl acid to the serum, there will be immediate purple color development within 30 seconds, and this is called as direct positive, and it occurs in condition when there is increased amount of direct bilirubin is present. What is direct bilirubin? It is the conjugated bilirubin which is water soluble, and that's why there is immediate color development, and that's why also it is called as direct bilirubin, and it is raised in the post hepatic or obstructive jaundice. Now what is indirect positive? The color development, that is purple color development, it occurs only after addition of methanol, and because this test is given by the unconjugated bilirubin which is water insoluble. So when you add methanol, then only it becomes soluble, and there will be purple color development after addition of methanol. That's why it is indirect positive, and that's why unconjugated bilirubin which is water insoluble but soluble in methanol, it is called as indirect bilirubin, and this unconjugated bilirubin is increased in the prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice, and that's why this means reaction is called as indirect positive Vandenberg reaction. The third is biphasic reaction. So what happens in the biphasic reaction? There is development of color immediately after adding the reagent, but the color is very pale. But that color intensifies after addition of methanol, and this occurs in the hepatic or infective condition. Now, when can this occur, biphasic reaction? If the serum contains both direct as well as indirect bilirubin, both conjugated as well as unconjugated bilirubin. So immediately the color development will be because of the presence of conjugated bilirubin, and after you add methanol, then unconjugated bilirubin will get dissolved there. So it becomes soluble. So there will be the intensification of that color, that purple color will get intensified. So in the biphasic, there is presence of both conjugated as well as unconjugated bilirubin. And in which condition both conjugated and unconjugated bilirubin are raised? That is in the hepatic jaundice, and this reaction is called as biphasic Vandenberg reaction. Now coming to the liver enzyme panel, and the enzymes which are indicative of liver damage, there are of two types. The first one are markers of hepatocellular injury, and other are markers of cholestasis. So which are the markers of hepatocellular injury? And those are alanine transaminase, or it is also called as alanine aminotransferase, that is ALT. Previously it was called as SGPT. The second is aspartate transaminase or aspartate aminotransferase, which is also called as AST. Previously it was called as SGOT. So these are the markers of hepatocellular injury. So whenever there is damage to the hepatocytes, these enzyme levels will be increased. Now which are the markers of cholestasis? Cholestasis is due to the obstruction to the bile flow. So there is a stasis of bile. And the markers are alkaline phosphatase, gamma glutamyl transferase, and 5-nucleotidase. So these are the liver enzyme panel which is included in the liver function test. Now let's understand some key points about these markers of hepatocellular injury, that is ALT and AST. What is the site? Where does it present? Alanine transaminase, it is present in the liver, and that is in the cytosolic fraction of liver. The normal reference range of alanine transaminase, that is ALT, is 5 to 40 units per liter, and there is marked increase in the level of ALT, that is up to 1000 units per liter. It occurs in conditions of severe viral hepatitis as well as toxic hepatitis. There is mild to moderate increase, that is up to 100 units per liter. It occurs in the biliary tract obstruction as well as alcoholic hepatitis. And this is very important during interpretation of laboratory data. we should know that in which condition there is mild to moderate increase and in which condition there is marked increase in the ALT levels. Now coming to this aspartate transaminase, AST, it is present not only in liver, it is also present in the heart, skeletal muscle, etc. And it is present both in the cytosol as well as mitochondria. The normal range is about 5 to 35 units per liter, and marked increase is seen in severe viral hepatitis or toxic hepatitis as ALT, and mild to moderate increase is seen in alcoholic hepatitis, and in the chronic condition, that is chronic active hepatitis, in the metastasis condition, that is hepatic metastasis. So in all these conditions, the increased AST can be seen. This AST, this can also be increased in the non-hepatic condition because it is also present in the heart, skeletal muscle. So it is raised in the myocardial infarction and skeletal muscle disorders as well. Both ALT and AST levels are increased in the liver disease, but the increase in ALT is more than increase in AST normally. And the normal AST to ALT ratio is less than 1 because ALT is more than AST. Now, when it is reversed or when AST to ALT ratio becomes more than 2 in case of alcoholic hepatitis. So, if the ratio is more than 2, then it denotes the alcoholic condition. Now, why there is increase in ratio? The reasons behind this is due to the reduction of hepatic ALT and increased release of AST from the mitochondria. What happens? Alcohol is a mitochondrial poison. So, in the alcoholic condition, there is more release of this AST from the mitochondria, and that's why in the alcoholic hepatitis, the increase in AST level is more than ALT, and that's why that ratio becomes more than 2. Alkaline phosphatase, that is ALP, it is the marker of obstructive liver disease or cholestasis. There are various isoenzymes of alkaline phosphatase, and these isoenzymes are alpha-1 alkaline phosphatase, alpha-2 heat labile, alpha-2 heat stable, pre-beta, gamma, and leukocyte alkaline phosphatase. This alpha-1 alkaline phosphatase present in the epithelial cell of biliary canaliculi, and that's why it is increased in the obstructive jaundice. So in the obstructive jaundice, there is increased alpha-1 isoenzyme of alkaline phosphatase. Alpha-2 is heat labile, L for liver. So labile is present in the hepatic cell. Heat labile alpha-2 is present in the hepatic cell. So in case of hepatic diseases, this alpha-2 fraction will be increased. That's why it should be noted that this alkaline phosphatase is increased in both hepatic diseases as well as obstructive jaundice. Alpha-2, it is heat stable, it is of placental origin, and it is increased in the pregnancy. Pre-beta, B for bone. So this beta bone fraction will be increased in the bone diseases, and gamma is present in the intestinal cells. So it is increased in the conditions like ulcerative colitis. Leukocyte alkaline phosphatase, it is increased in the lymphomas and decreased in the chronic myeloid leukemia. Now the normal reference range is it is different for different age groups, because in the growing age in children it is more, but the normal reference range is 30 to 115 units per liter. And if there is moderate increase 2 to 3 times of the normal range, so it denotes the hepatic diseases like infective hepatitis, alcoholic hepatitis, or hepatocellular carcinoma. There is just 2 to 3 times increase that of normal range of alkaline phosphatase. Now very high levels, that is up to 10 to 12 times increase, will be seen in the obstructive conditions, obstructive jaundice. For example, in extrahepatic obstruction, that is obstructive jaundice, and intrahepatic cholestasis like infection of liver, that is hepatitis due to viruses, that is infective hepatitis, or the toxicity due to drugs like chlorpromazine. So please note that moderate increase is seen in the hepatic condition and very high levels of alkaline phosphatase are found in the obstructive jaundice and intrahepatic cholestasis. If there is drastically high levels of alkaline phosphatase, more than 10 to 25 times, then it is indicative of bone diseases, because this pre-beta fraction, bone fraction, it is 50% of the total alkaline phosphatase. So 10 to 25 times more than the normal range is seen in the conditions like Paget disease, rickets, osteomalacia, osteoblastoma, and metastatic carcinoma of bone. So while you interpret any laboratory data or when you study any clinical case, it should be always kept in the mind that in the hepatic disease, that is hepatic jaundice, there will be increase in the ALT, AST as well as ALP can also be increased, but the increase will be moderate. And in the obstructive jaundice, the increase in alkaline phosphatase will be very high, that is 10 to 12 times than that of the normal range. Second marker of obstructive liver disease or cholestasis is gamma glutamyl transferase, that is GGT. It is seen in liver, kidney and intestine, and the reference range is about 5 to 40 units per liter. This gamma glutamyl transferase is the sensitive biomarker for recognition of alcohol abuse, and it is increased in the alcoholic liver disease. It is increased even when the other liver function tests are within normal limits. So it is the important biomarker which is indicative of alcoholic liver disease, and it is also significantly increased in the obstructive jaundice. Then comes 5-nucleotidase. It is also marker of obstructive liver disease, but it is not routinely included in the LFT. It is the ectoenzyme present on the cell membrane, and the reference range is 2 to 10 units per liter. It is moderately increased in hepatitis, but highly increased in biliary obstruction. So it is more specific for obstructive liver disease. Let's see how to interpret values of alkaline phosphatase and gamma glutamyl transferase together. So if both ALP and GGT are estimated and there is increase, mild to moderate increase in the ALP level and GGT level is also increased, then this denotes either hepatic or biliary disease, because there is mild to moderate elevation in both hepatic and biliary disease is seen. So both are elevated, then hepatic or biliary. If alkaline phosphatase is highly elevated and GGT is also elevated, then it confirms the biliary disease only, because we know that in the obstructive condition, that is in the biliary obstruction, there is high elevation of alkaline phosphatase. GGT is also marker of obstructive obstruction in the biliary canaliculi or biliary duct, so it will also get elevated. So both are elevated, but ALP is highly elevated, then it is the biliary disease. When alkaline phosphatase is elevated but GGT is normal, then it denotes the bone condition, because the pre-beta isoenzyme of ALP is elevated in the bone diseases. If ALP is normal and GGT is raised, means there is isolated raise in the GGT, then it denotes the alcohol abuse. This is how we can interpret the values of ALP and GGT. Let's conclude the topic by summarizing types of jaundice. This particular table is very important for laboratory report interpretation, for multiple choice question, for writing long answer question, and for clinical case discussions as well. So let's see what happens in each of these three types of jaundice. What happens to the blood parameters, urine parameters and feces. What will be the findings? So first is prehepatic jaundice. So the jaundice will be low in this condition. Unconjugated bilirubin will be elevated. Conjugated bilirubin remains normal in the prehepatic jaundice. Alkaline phosphatase, AST, ALT will be normal. In the urine, conjugated bilirubin will be absent in the urine. Bile salts will be absent. Urobilinogen will be present or increased. And there will be presence of stercobilinogen, which will give dark color to the stools. So prehepatic jaundice is characterized by increased unconjugated bilirubin, then presence of urobilinogen in the urine, and absence of conjugated bilirubin and bile salts in the urine, and all the enzyme parameters are within the normal range. So these are the important key points about prehepatic jaundice. Coming to the hepatocellular or hepatic jaundice, the jaundice will be marked in this condition, and both conjugated and unconjugated bilirubin will be elevated, and as there is damage to the hepatocytes and there can be intrahepatic cholestasis later on or damage to the intrahepatic bile duct, there will be increase in all, that is ALT, AST and ALP, will all the three enzymes will be increased in the hepatocellular jaundice. But the increase in ALT and AST will be very high. There will be marked increase in both ALT and AST. But ALP level will be increased, but that increase will be within 2 to 3 times normal. So increase in ALP will be there in the hepatocellular, but increase is not that like in the post-hepatic jaundice. There will be presence of conjugated bilirubin and bile salts in the urine, and urobilinogen in the urine will be present in the early state or condition, but it will be decreased as the obstruction sets in. In the feces, in the hepatocellular jaundice, stercobilin will be present in the early stage, but later it can be decreased, so it will give variable color to the feces. Mostly it is pale colored. So this is about hepatocellular jaundice. Now post-hepatic, third one. The jaundice will be marked in this condition, and this is post-hepatic. There is obstruction, so the unconjugated will be normal in this condition and conjugated will be more. The increase in ALT and AST will be moderate, so there will be moderate increase, but the increase in alkaline phosphatase will be more. So there can be 10 to 10 times normal range of alkaline phosphatase can be seen in this obstructive jaundice. There will be presence of bile pigments and bile salts in the urine, and urobilinogen will be exclusively absent in the urine, and there will be absent stercobilin in the feces, so it will give clay color to the stools. So this is about three types of jaundice, that is prehepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic. I hope this liver function test part 2 video is useful to you. In the third part, I am going to explain laboratory report interpretation. So keep watching. Thank you so much.